Hello and welcome back to Pravus Gaming and more Democracy 3 Electioneering, playing as France. We have completed 7 years in office. We are about to begin year 8. Okay, so what did we do last time? Well, I know last time we spoke for 15 minutes on gun rights and the Second Amendment and why it exists in the first place. Half the video. Sorry about that if some of you guys didn't like it, but at least I included a skip button. Haven't seen the comments on that because I am moving straight on into recording the next video, but I will be very interested to read what you guys have to say. Yes, very interesting indeed. Alright, well, let's begin year 8. Software patents, I believe... Well, okay, let's see. Allowing the software patents makes capitalists happy. I think it improves the GDP. Rejecting them, I think, makes liberals happy? Or maybe it's the self-employed. I'm going to allow them. Let's find out real quick. Let's see. I know that capitalists will be happy by this, which I don't really care about, but I think the GDP will go up. Let's see. Yes, it does, by 2%. You know, 2% to a GDP is not inconsequential, okay? I mean, I know it looks like a small number, but, like, that's legit by modern standards. A 2% increase in the GDP per year would be amazing. So, yeah. What about, is it liberal? Yeah, liberals don't like it. What about the self-employed? No, they're fine with it. Okay, so that was a capitalist versus liberal thing. We chose to side with the capitalists and upset the liberals, which is debatably a bad choice, but we got a GDP growth out of it. So, I don't really care. It's fine. Let's go ahead and move on through some different things. What do I want to do in this video? You know what? I think I want to have some fun with France. I want to start doing some kind of crazy things. Like, raise some ridiculous taxes and, like, try to see how much I can get away with. I think that'd be fun, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know what? At this point, I've done enough Democracy 3 series that I think I can afford to have a little bit of fun and do some outrageous-y things. Things that otherwise might lead to some negative events and utterly screw with the country. But we'll do our best to push the limit and then end on a positive note where France doesn't have negative events. That's what I'm going to go for. So to that extent, before we get started, why don't I go ahead and pass a law that all rich people must release their tax returns. This is going to be important, because as I raise taxes and other things like that, this is a way of trying to avoid tax evasion and other negative events like that. I don't know how much I can get away with. This is kind of going to be a question as far as like some science. You know, I'm going to sit back and see how much I can play with the numbers and get away with, just for future reference. In case I do more socialist playthroughs like this, maybe I want to know, can I pass this 90% tax and get away with it? I'm not saying I'm going to do 90%, that'd be terrible. Instead, I think I'm going to cap CEO pay. Yeah, let's do that. Capitalists, socialists, blah, 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 blah. So basically the concept is that, well... Okay, the concept basically is that, hey, I'm a wealthy CEO owner, I'm making ridiculous profits, you know, my average employee is being paid $35,000 a year, but I'm walking away with $4 million a year, and they say that's ridiculously unfair as far as income inequality and so on, right? So, I have seen people pass the law, or, I'm not sorry, not pass a law, but suggest a law, there we go, that we should have laws saying CEOs can only make so much above the average of their employees. So my average employee is paid $35,000 a year. Well, with a 10 times cap, I'm only allowed to make $350,000 a year. That's the maximum I'm allowed to be paid. Now, I agree that CEOs are paid a ridiculous amount of money. I do, however, think that companies have the right to choose how much to spend on a CEO if they think he is worth the amount of money he is charging. And if he's not, then they will fire him and get someone cheaper. As long as there's not a conflict of interest, right? As long as they're not, like, the board of directors is not voting to increase their own pay and bypassing the rules of, like, the public ownership and such in a company, you know, as long as there's no conflict of interest and shady dealings like that, then I have no problem with CEOs being paid a lot. I think it's a lot. I think it's way more than they probably ought to be paid. That's personal opinion, though. I think they have the right to do so. And if the shareholders of a company disagree, then they can fire him and find someone cheaper. And the power is still in the hands of the people. Personal opinion, though, because I'm a free market capitalist, not everyone would agree with me on that point. We're going to go ahead and pass a law so that 10 times average is all that's allowed. The wealthy income is going to go way down. Like, we are just robbing the wealthy blind. And interestingly, we're not really gaining a lot out of it, right? So we're just removing a ton of their money, we're taking it, and where's it going? It's not going into my coffers, and it doesn't say anywhere here that wages go up, that the poor make more money, that the middle class makes more money. It just says that equality as a general rule goes up, a sense of equality, and that's good for an egalitarian society, but that's it. It doesn't say anything about where that money goes. It just sort of disappears, poof, as far as the game's numbers are concerned. So I think this is actually a terrible policy, but it does increase socialism membership, which is good for us. We'll increase it by 3%. The wealthy will be very unhappy. This is why I passed the public tax returns. So hopefully we won't have any horrible events here. We'll find out. I'm kind of expecting to get tax evasion at some point in the future, but I want to find out. Human cloning. Nearly 20% of children are already conceived with the help of in vitro fertilization. Really? 20%? I don't think that's no, that's not true, right? Is that true? I can't remember if I actually already covered this in one of my videos. I feel like I'm seeing so many of the same events, but I'm not sure that we actually have. So I'm going to pretend to be shocked as if I had never seen this event before. I don't necessarily believe the 20% number, but maybe I'm just completely out of touch with in vitro fertilization statistics. It's totally possible. Cloning them is scientifically possible. Despite entering legal limbo, a number of wealthy couples and individuals have gone ahead and made cloning reality. Religious leaders are strongly opposing this new trend, labeling it a satanic practice. This is actually a very short description. Human cloning is the logical next step in human development. We cannot stand in the way of the future or ban it. Cloning is not a natural method of procreation. This practice goes against all religious teachings, and a moral society should not allow this to take place. Well, we're going to throw that argument right out because in this playthrough we do not care about the opinions of the religious because there are no religious people in France. However, replace this with a different argument. It's against nature. Nature does not have cloning. You know, and who knows what kind of Pandora's box you're going to open with something like that. What kind of genetic destabilization will occur with something like cloning? You know, what kind of ethical concerns come into play with cloning? How do you define a person when there are multiple of the same person? How does that work? What kind of rights do they have? You know, I don't know. That opens up so many questions. And it doesn't have to be a question of religious teachings in a moral society. It just comes down to ethics and whether or not there are going to be unintended consequences. Now, for our playthrough, it doesn't seem to say that there are going to be unintended consequences, so we're going to go for it. We're going to allow human cloning. I think that will make liberals happy. Religious, technically they're still 2%, which I'm shocked by, but I'm pretty darn sure it's going to go away. Liberals should be happy with this, right? Oh yeah, they're happy with this. This offsets the damage I did by software patents because those are totally equivalent things, right? Absolutely. The right to have a software patent is just as important as the right to clone a human being. Strikes me as kind of dumb. How are we doing as far as our cabinet? Pretty dang well, actually. This guy's the only weak link at 5.1 political capital per turn. But all in all, he's not bad. Pretty much everyone else is happy. Even the conservative person is pretty happy. Because guess what? Conservatives are happy people, even though they're only 6% of the population. You know? What a conservative-looking young lady right there. And I say young. I'm being flattering. She looks pretty old to me, but yeah, I don't know. We're happy. They are happy. I told you, making liberals and conservatives happier is totally possible. And as a result, we are getting tons of political capital. So this does seem to have worked out pretty well for us. Let's see what else we should do. Crazy things. Driverless car laws? Sure, that's something new in clones and drones. Okay, driverless car technology is booming. The manufacturers are encouraging the government to allow their use on public roads. Basically, Google cars have now become a huge thing. And actually, I have seen driverless cars. They're actually fascinating. I'm not sure I am anywhere near courageous enough to get into one of those things, but they are fascinating. I'm kind of impressed by them. This actually, is a little bit like I, Robot, you know, the movie with Will Smith. I know it was a book before that. I know it was a book before it was a movie, and the book is better. Thank you. I agree. But whatever. In that movie, like, they had a bunch of driverless cars, and basically a centralized AI intelligence kind of monitored and directed all traffic at high speeds. Really cool concept, possibly the way of the future. Not sure it's going to happen in my time. I'm not sure that computing technology is anywhere near strong enough to do something like that, but it's kind of cool. Oh, okay. Well, this does seem to do a lot of things. Oh, wow, it increases unemployment? Really? Well, this increases industrial automation a lot, which is also going to increase the unemployment. Wait a minute. So this does reduce traffic a lot. That's great. But it also reduces bus and rail usage, which by default increases car usage, which increases CO2 emissions, which hurts the environment and foreign relations. I don't know if we want to go all the way to highways. Maybe we want to have something a little bit more restricted, like a separate lane. Not separate lots, private lots, no. That's so restrictive you'd never be able to get around anywhere. What about separate lanes? If France goes around and builds a bunch of separate lanes, specifically for the driverless cars, that means they're contained to one area, not as much computing power is required, and French people who still like to drive their own cars can do so and not be worried that they're going to get in their way. Also, it doesn't do nearly as much damage as far as unemployment, bus usage, rail usage, industrial automation, and so on, though the traffic congestion is certainly nice. It's actually good for the GDP to have less traffic congestion. Yeah, let's just do it something around there. Around 160 million euros per quarter. I'm curious how it's going to work. This was a grand experiment, okay? I've never really used some of these policies. Clones and drones. Like, I know a lot of the content in Clones and Drones, but I'm not nearly as well rehearsed with it as I am with the other stuff. So, you know, I might make some mistakes. And I'm curious to see what some of these policies will do. 9 political capital left. Let's just move on to the next turn. Oil price shock. Worries about war in the Middle East have resulted in many countries panicking and stockpiling supplies of oil due to the threat of future supply difficulties. As a result, the demand for oil has shot up, which has had negative impacts on motorists and our economy. As the oil price rises to reflect the increased demands, oil supply goes down, but that's good because guess what? We have an entirely green fleet of cars, right? Gasoline cars are banned. I don't care about the oil supply. You are allowed to go down as much as you want. We did pass that, right? Did we pass? Uh-oh. Wait. Electric cars. Yes, we did ban gas-powered cars. I thought so. Okay. So yeah, that will not affect us at all. Oil price has gone up, which is actually good for the GDP because I think we are selling oil. Actually, that may be the downside of having less oil supply, is because we can't sell the oil. Oil demand is at a 0, okay? So we don't have any more oil to sell, but we're not using any of it, so it won't hurt our economy too much. We just can't be a net exporter of energy. I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, okay, that actually would be a little bit of a problem. But okay. What should we do now? We need to increase liberalism membership. What if we do... no, not those. Where is it? Looking for diversity. There it is, diversity quotas for companies. Very cheap, costs a fair bit of political capital. A diverse company is a happy and healthy company, says the government, because the government knows best. Enabling diversity quotas for companies will force some companies to hire more people from different ethnic backgrounds, typo, that have the same qualification, easing racial tensions and making companies a place of equal opportunity. How do you determine equal qualifications? That seems like a difficult thing to do from a legislative perspective. Everyone has different experiences. Yes, this white man and this black man may have both got a degree, but they're from different schools. One school is better than another. Does that qualify as a different qualification? One worked as an intern and the other didn't. Is that different qualifications? One has demonstrated leadership opportunities when he was a manager at his local Burger King, when he was in high school. Does that mean he has different qualifications? Like, how do you do that? Everyone has a different story as far as how they got to where they are. I mean, I'm all for people hiring the most qualified people for the job, regardless of ethnic origin. Like, I'm not a racist. I do not care what your skin color is. I really don't. I know some people say that that's a microaggression these days. You know what? Screw you too. I don't care. Seriously, I'm also in favor of a good, diverse company as far as these are the most qualified people, but I don't think race should play a role at all, personally. That's my own role, and I think that's a very difficult thing to legislate. Am I the only one who sees it that way? How do you pass that law? Seriously, knowing what I just listed out, how do you do that? I don't know. I don't really know. But it will reduce racial tension a lot. Liberals are happy. Actually, it says that it reduces racial tension. In the United States, at the very least, that's not true. I really don't feel like diversity quotas have reduced racial tension. I think it's increased it because there's some level of resentment from white people like me. I'm not saying I resent this, but there definitely is some resentment that people who they consider lesser qualified are getting preferential treatment in hiring processes. They call it reverse discrimination. I mean, I think it's all discrimination, but whatever. I don't know. So I'm not sure I agree with that number, but for the purposes of this game, that's what it's supposed to do. It will make ethnic minorities extremely happy, equality goes up, capitalists and self-employed, not so happy. I don't really care why. I don't know why the self-employed would care. The self-employed are presumably freelance, working on their own. Maybe they have employees, and this is just messing with their own hiring practices. But then they'd be business owners. Does that mean that they're capitalists? I have no idea exactly how the game considers that to be tied in, but whatever. We're going to go ahead and pass it, because, hey, extra equality is good, and reducing racial tension is really good. Where is racial tension? There you are. I mean, we have no racial tension in France at all. Now, just wait, right, until the ethnic minorities start flooding in. And by the way, don't think I haven't noticed that the numbers have been steadily climbing, up to 26% now. They're coming in here. So once they get in, we'll see how well this holds. But for the time being, it's working out really, really well for France. Actually, how is immigration doing? It's pretty high. It's actually high enough that it's now starting to do some harm to the GDP and to wages. Because immigrants are moving to France and they're working for cheaper. So wages as a whole are going down because there is an oversupply of labor in this country. Because again, you know, I hate to work people down into such abstract concepts, but labor, work, and laborers is still under the same principles of the free market as far as supply and demand. If there is a huge supply of labor, then wages as a whole, what you're willing to pay for it, goes down. And if there's a shortage of labor, then prices go up. How do you maintain a good balance in an economy? Well, that's the tricky part. And that's where you're supposed to allow the free market to do its work. And that's where some governments try to restrict immigration to a healthy number based on certain economic data. And you can have a discussion as far as whether or not that should be allowed. I mean, I'm not really here to talk about that, but that's just sort of how it is. Anyways-y-hoo. Let's move on to... I want to do bus subsidies. I saw these and I thought that looked pretty good. We'll pass them. This makes the commuters extremely happy. Motorists not so much because we're directing taxpayer dollars to buses, but I think it'll be fine. Bus usage goes way up, which means that rail and car usage goes way down. Poor earnings go up. Commuter membership goes up, which means there are less motorists causing problems for me. Unemployment goes down. Not much to really care, but it's something. We're buying out the commuter vote. Where are they, by the way? Commuter. There you are. Oh, you're very happy with me, and you're about half the population. We're going to make it even better. Yeah, that's right. You like me. You like me a lot. All right, what else should we do? Oops, wrong button again. Let's pass the let's pass the youth club subsidies. These are pretty good. We'll pass these. Parents like it, socialists like it, crime goes down, youth like it, and youth have more spending money because basically we are providing a government location for youth to hang out, like a rec center, you know? Which in the long run is better, they say, because it reduces street crime. So, okay. Now here's the thing. It says it is resented by wealthier taxpayers who see it as an unnecessary expense paid for by their taxes, and yet none of them are angry at me. There's no downsides to this. Zero. Youth club subsidies are only good. I feel like capitalists and or the wealthy ought to be unhappy, just based on the description from the policy itself, but apparently not. Apparently not. Could do a youth politics council as well, but meh. Now let's just move on to the next turn instead. Trade agreement. A group of Western countries has established an initiative to set up a new trade agreement of regulating tariffs, quotas, and other trade restrictions. This contract should help to prevent emerging countries from... What? This contract should help to prevent emerging countries from catching up and secure worldwide economic dominance at the expense of global equality. That's an interesting perspective on trade. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong. That's sort of the whole point of tariffs and stuff, is to try and give yourself an economic edge at other countries' expense. And you do as much as you can while still maintaining good trade with those people. If you do too much, obviously they'll just stop trading with you entirely. That's at least the theory behind tariffs. Now, personally, as a free market capitalist, I'm very firmly against tariffs and trade restrictions like that. I believe in open and free trade is best for everyone involved. So I guess this is one perspective as far as how a trading bloc works. Huh. Sounds very draconian, doesn't it? We're trying to stop countries in like Africa and South America and parts of Asia from catching up to us in the West. Trying to make sure that we're the wealthy ones and they all make cheap goods for us. That's the idea, huh? Interesting. Sign the agreement. Our economy is under stress from new players in the global market. We have to tie closer bonds with old friends in order to emerge victorious. Or refuse to sign the agreement. We would support our economy at the expense of global fairness. Welcome new players to the global theater with open arms. I'm not sure what this does. I'm guessing patriots like this, maybe it has an impact on the GDP, maybe it has an impact on even the uncompetitive economy. Ooh, that'd be interesting. The negative event, maybe that would increase it. Refusing it, I suspect, makes the liberals and ethnic minorities happy and also increase foreign relations. We're going to refuse to sign it. We're not going to join the European Union. Haha, no, wait, no, that's not right. Foreign relations. Yeah, foreign relations goes up. Liberal? Yep, they're very happy with that. Ethnic minorities. They don't care. Interesting. Patriot? They don't care either? What? Capitalists. Capitalists don't like it. Really? See, this is a very interesting perspective on what capitalists are. Again, I just said, I consider myself a free market capitalist. Not only on a national level, but also at a global level, because I think that pretty much every economist worth their salt understands that trade is important for wealth development, wealth creation, and the freer the trade is, generally the better. So I would consider myself a capitalist, and I would be happy at the trade agreement with tariffs being discouraged. Right? I'm not that I'm against free trade agreements like NAFTA and stuff like that, although some people would say that I should be. And that we can get into a discussion about that later, but I'm against tariffs. I'd be happy with this, and yet capitalists are not. It makes me feel like capitalists in this game have less to do with free enterprise and free markets, and more to do with corporatism, which is basically the government regulating the markets. It's government intervention in markets. That's basically a form of corporatism. As opposed to socialism, which is basically, real socialism, is basically government control of markets, or at least certain markets. That's one of the reasons I think that a lot of democratic socialist nations have a little bit less to do with actual socialism as far as like the nationalist socialism you see in your textbooks, and a little bit more to do with a sort of a version of corporatism mixed with a welfare state and redistributing the wealth, which is admittedly a socialist concept, but it's a bit more complicated than that. It's so hard to take economic models in real practice, in the real world, and label them completely accurately. Like, truth be told, a lot of economic systems in the world today, most countries, pick a little bit from several different systems based on what seems to fit their fancy. So, I don't know. That's interesting. It's a very different perspective on capitalism than I personally would have myself, but okay. What should we do? We have still got a surplus, and we have almost 500 billion euros in the bank. We should reduce taxes. I'm going to reduce the taxes down to 50%. There. Middle income will be ever so slightly happier. I'll make less money. That actually might even be enough to avert tax evasion. I'm not sure we're going to get that lucky, but it'd be interesting if we could. We'll give it a shot. 35 political capital left. What should we do? We should pass free bus passes. There you go. That makes the poor happy, and they make more money. The retired are happy as well. Bus usage goes up, which should mean that car usage goes down. Not that that's necessarily even a bad thing, because, you know, cars don't use gasoline, so it's not actually supposed to be that harmful to the environment. How is the environment doing, by the way? Oh, it's maxed out. We have an amazing environment here in France. Very clean. Very beautiful. The south of France has never been more lively. How's tourism? Tourism's pretty darn good. Surprisingly, why does the environment have negative 0.1%? Apparently having a beautiful environment does not increase tourism, but having a terrible environment does decrease it. That doesn't seem too fair to me. I definitely would love to go to a beautiful place personally, but okay. Let's pass microgeneration grants. These are pretty good. Environmentalists like it. Energy efficiency goes up. CO2 emissions goes down. Environment also goes up a little bit more. We'll just solidify that. You know, at some point I really should consider going for the International Fusion Research Project. I know that France does rely pretty heavily upon nuclear power. I think I saw a comment about that actually a few videos back, but you know, fusion's interesting. That's a clones versus drones policy. Yeah, you guys haven't seen that yet on this channel. Could be kind of fun. Could be kind of fun. What else should we do? No, don't think we need these right now. Why don't we spend some of our political capital improving our perceptions? Let's go to trustworthy, which, by the way, has increased. And let's release our personal tax returns. We already passed a law that everyone has to do it. Well, I'm just going to make sure that it gets televised. Everyone gets to see it. And yes, that increased my trustworthiness a fair bit. Nice. You know, let's also land on an aircraft carrier. Because apparently that's pretty easy to do. There's an 80% chance of success. I would think that's really hard and takes years and years of training, but apparently not. Apparently not. Yep, there we go. Strong leader has been improved to 50%, which we already know is the maximum. So there you go. Now we are perceived as a little bit better by the populace. And by the way, we have members? We have members! People started finally joining the party. They all did it at once. Simultaneously, like 58 million French people said, hey, you know what? We should probably join the party of the guy that we like. Thank you. Finally. So now we're actually fundraising from our members. That's pretty cool. Very, very cool. And they're actually making up a plurality of our fundraising as opposed to the donors. We no longer care about you guys. We're making plenty of money. I appreciate your efforts, though. Hey, yeah, the manifesto has been met. Cool. Alright, well, I think that's going to be good enough for this video. Thank you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If so, then hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. We're going to move on into year... we just did year 8, right? Year 9. We're going to move on into year 9 next video. Hope you enjoy. Hope you'll stay tuned. I'll see you then.